there's this sort of pretense that it's just the big bad guys are stopping us and causing climate change. Well, there's an element of that. Yes, they're big bad guys. But that's not the biggest problem. I mean, they have not, from our point of view, been that hard to defeat. Their corruption is wafer thin. It only has so much force, to the extent that you have the attention of the public and political pressure occurring, fear and anxiety about climate change, which does exist. You can achieve the change. The real challenge is that none of the different parties in the chain for the change to occur knows anything about it. That's the truth of the matter. And so, we started out in the political position of, and I thought the same way, just write the law that allows communities to break away from their monopoly utility and choose their own supplier and give them control over their sourcing, and they can choose green power and have their democratic discussion, debate, and decide to do that. And I was a believer in that path. I'm still a believer in that path generally, but in the process, I ran up against shocking disappointments and learning that, once you actually get the democratic discussion to occur, it is constrained. It has barriers. It's not a pure sanctum of perfect reason by any means. And so even unencumbered, it's problematic. Most of the public officials are totally ignorant and often superficial people. The political process itself is distorted a priori, not just in whether they're corrupt. Usually they're not corrupt. But why were they elected? Because they're superficial. And so the democracy itself is not functioning, right? We're creating a power for local democracies that is, in a sense, more sophisticated than they are. So that trespass between the activist role and the expert role, we're mostly would be considered now to be experts. That's what we do. We're paid to help governments implement these changes. So we realized 15 years ago that the private sector was not going to respond to this. It doesn't matter what you offer them. You can give them San Francisco, the energy supply to San Francisco for 20 years, worth billions of dollars. You can offer them free government financing. They don't need a bank, and they still would not deliver. And so the technical had to be delivered, and the activists, in fact, are incapable of attaining that disciplined result of complex negotiation unless they're provided with technically proficient information and messages, if you want to call it messages. They need to know what to say in a complex and attenuated manner to the experts, to the public officials, in order to exert a targeted pressure on the outcome. Otherwise, it's all platitudes. You're in church, you're talking about how people should be better, and if people were just better, the world would be a better place. And the angels would come down from heaven, and we would all be happy, and there'd be an end of suffering. And you get into this platitude, this sort of imaginative, sentimental world of so much activism, particularly environmental activism, which is, the polar bears, it's so sad, the fish, the oceans are dying, I'm so sad. Oh yeah? Because the issue isn't really how sad you are. You could cry your eyes out and nothing's going to happen. You yourself could stop eating fish. That's nice. But if you actually want to do something about the ocean dying, there's a whole lot of technical things that have to happen to make that stop. And they have to be forced, which isn't to say the government forces it, but the knowledge has to exist that is definite, that is concrete, and that is sharp and hard in order for it to have force in that industrial political environment.